What's good, y'all? It's not. It's, the day ain't going well unless there's some kind of technical issue. I'm broadcasting live to YouTube. I usually do it another way, so whenever you do it, everything kind of flips a little bit. Either way, hope everybody's well. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Hope everybody is well. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will. You can either become a patron and support the channel, the Institute for Black Male Studies, or the Onyx TV network. You can do a super chat right here. If you don't want your name disclosed, you can always do a Cash App and just simply say you want to keep your name anonymous. All of it is good. Appreciate the support. And if you can't do anything else, at least hit the like button so we can get on with what we need to get on with. So that said, let me first shout out Brandon Penn. What's good? Says, great to see you live again, Doc. Hood Rise set. Okay. Let me see. Brandon again says, oh, Hope Rise set. I see you. Yeah, he's good. He's good. We probably going to go catch a flick after this. So today is not going to be a super long one, but I had to touch on this because some of the things, well, I'll get to that in a second. Shout out to my brother Muwada. What's good with you, man? I am well. I hope you are as well. We got Jeff in the house, Mike, Raheem, Greg, Real Black Gentleman, Blood Crow from an undisclosed location. All right, I see. Big H, Dahudi, I saw Rock. Hope you're good. Raheem, Kiel, Jay Shabazz, KJ Eternal, LM, what's good? I was a bit disappointed after watching Medium Man's broadcast earlier. It seems to me that people are content going it alone. Of course, it will just be our people who will lag behind this. Interesting. All right. Vince, what's good? MLR, what's good, man? LXST, Indigo, Ben Cisco, the emissary. I love it. CR Frank, MLR with the generous donation. Much appreciated. So supporting my Black male scholars. That's what's up. Greg Hill, what's going on? Terenzo. So, ran into this, and I got to shout out. There's a group of brothers that do some serious history work, and I got to shout them out. Shout out to Adrian and Julius and Marshall, who send in some pretty good stuff. And I got brothers all around that just send stuff in at random, and I want to thank all of you for doing so. Just a minor request: if you're going to send me a video, even if it's just a TikTok, let me know what it's about. Let me know why you're sending it. Doesn't have to be a long description, but I get a lot of stuff and I don't have time to go through everything. So at the very least, let me know what it is. And I think sometimes brothers just want to send me something that's funny or whatever, and that's cool. But if you can let me know what it's about, it would go a long way to help. So shout out to Volcanus with the $10. Appreciate that. AB Media, what's good? Good to see you in here, man. Indigo, KJ. All right. So y'all know the deal. Let me see. Before I skip everything. Oh, man. Did I lose it? I did lose it. All right. We'll just go past it. All right. So we'll jump right in. So what we're dealing with today is something I got an article about earlier this morning. And it's really, in many ways, confirming for me that a lot of the stuff we're pushing for is on its way. It's on its way in one way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, this particular thing wasn't even on the Black male political agenda, the ending of permanent alimony, and so I thought it was incredibly interesting for this to pop up, so I think we need to discuss it. Shout out to Don, says, don't like DeSantis really, to be honest, but credit where credit is due. With the no permanent alimony bill, first, the Tennessee paternity bill. Now our works aren't being ignored. What's up, Mark? Good to see you in here. And that's absolutely my point. You have Tennessee. I think Texas came in with something. You had Maryland. Now we got Florida. I'm not particularly a huge DeSantis fan. I'm not even a conservative. I don't particularly care. I think a lot of the policies I advocate for are considered conservative. I wouldn't care if it was considered conservative or progressive. The policies I advocate for have to do with supporting Black men. You can call me BM1 in that context, right? And so that being said, if the policy comes down, I support the policy, not necessarily the politician. I support the policy, and we got to work that difference through a little bit. But so let's go to it. Let's see. Got everything primed up right. So there you go. Right. So this is one of several articles. This one I got from CBS News. It says Florida Governor DeSantis signs bill ending permanent alimony. This is June 30th. Right. So this is just a couple days ago, just a few days ago. And this is what we're talking about. Right. We're looking at this because it's not something that, like I said, we were necessarily pushing for, but it's damn sure time that it be considered. And I'll tell you why. Right. I have a colleague or a mentor, I should say, who, she was a graduate school mentor. Nevertheless, she divorced in about, I want to say like 1980, early 80s, 81, 82, somewhere in there. She is still pulling an alimony check to this day. Still. So that's got to be about 42 years. So I want you all to think about that. Permanent alimony can be crippling to people, right? It de-incentivizes women, most particularly women, because they're the ones that generally get alimony. I mean, it's not like alimony has been off the chain lately, but for the most part, it tends to be women that get it more often than men, unless you're dealing with some kind of celebrity or whatever parting. But either way, you can, for regular people who are getting hit with this can go on for decades, and it de-incentivizes women from moving on, marrying others, so on and so forth. Because she'll, in many instances, she'll choose that check over anything else. So this is what we're dealing with, and it's time that these things be reconsidered. I'm gonna see. I gotta see if this is working today. So give me a 1 if you can hear Snoop read this word. All right. So if y'all heard that, give me a 1 in the chat. Let me know. Make sure everything's working. Like I said, whenever there's an update to my system, it starts acting weird. So if you didn't hear it, click 2. If you heard it, put in 1. Well, okay, nobody heard it. Interesting. That is a trip. Okay, so nobody heard any of that, huh? Right. Lamar says, I think the GOP is listening to BM content creators and are seriously making a push for black male votes by enacting policy. I hope it pays off. All right. Well, I appreciate it. I guess Snoop ain't working today. Like I said, I'm coming on in a different way. And whenever you change the rules, you never know what else changes. So I'll go ahead and read it myself. Tallahassee, Governor Ron DeSantis on Friday signed a measure that will overhaul the state's alimony laws. After 3 vetoes of similar bills and a decade of emotional clashes over the issue, the measure, SB 1416, includes doing away with what is known as permanent alimony. DeSantis' approval came a year after he nixed a similar bill that sought to eliminate permanent alimony and set up a formula for alimony amounts based on the length of marriage. The approval drew an outcry from members of the First Wives Advocacy Group, a coalition of mostly older women who receive permanent alimony and who assert that their lives will be upended without the payments. Not like their ex-husbands' lives weren't upended at the payments, but that's interesting, right? This is on behalf of the thousands of women who our group represents. Now, it's interesting to hear that. Thousands, not millions, right? This is a small collective of I would bet mostly white women that are on the inside of this, but it's not limited to that. Like I said, my colleague was black. Over 40 years of alimony payments. She's still getting to this day, right? That's a long time to pay for a marriage. I mean, there should be a point where she's incentivized to stand on her own 2 feet. I mean, this is a policy that was developed around women who may have been married for a decade and hadn't worked. Maybe had never worked. Right, who were with men who did work. This is the time period where alimony was kind of developed, and there's some other funky quirks to that I covered in a previous video over a couple of years ago. But we're at a point now where 2 family incomes is normal. We're at a point where women being able to work is a normal thing, and so if you have decades in some situations permanent alimony, there's no incentive to get her to go back to work. There's no incentive to, for her to stand on her own 2 feet. Anyway, we believe by signing it, he has put older women in a situation which will cause financial devastation. So-called party of family values has just contributed to erosion of the institution of marriage in Florida. Jan Killeley, a 63-year-old Boca Raton woman who founded the group a decade ago, told the News Service of Florida in a text message Friday. The years-long effort to do away with permanent alimony has been a highly contentious issue. It elicited tearful testimony from members of the First Wives group. Now, that's interesting because coincidentally, and I've talked about this for years, but I just caught a short by a Medium man. I want to say this was probably released today, where he talked about the weaponization of tears. Now, I've been talking about the weaponization of tears, particularly white women's tears, but women's tears in general, and the way that's often weaponized against men. So to hear this public response to DeSantis, I don't find that to be an empty gesture at all. I think it's a highly political gesture, right? You're not crying in the hallways. You're not crying in the bathroom. You're crying on TV. That's a strategic move. That is the weaponization of femininity, because men's natural response is to protect. Most of the time, we do not like to see women and girls cry. And we will even sacrifice ourselves for strangers when seeing a woman cry. And if you see a woman crying in public, at some point, a man, if not a woman, but especially a man, is going to come over and ask her if she's okay, if there's anything he can do. That's a natural response from males. So this kind of tearful testimony shit, yeah, that's political, right? But it also spurred impassioned pleas from ex-spouses, generally the men, who said they had been forced to work long past the age they wanted to retire because they were on the hook for alimony payments. That's deep. Michael Buehler, chairman of Florida Family Fairness, a group that has pushed for doing away with permanent alimony, praised the approval of the bill. Florida Family Fairness is pleased that the Florida legislature and Governor DeSantis has passed a bill that ends permanent alimony and codifies in statute the right to retire for existing alimony payers, Buehler said in a statement. Anything that adds clarity and ends permanent alimony is a win for Florida families. Along with DeSantis' veto of the 2022 version, former Governor Rick Scott twice vetoed similar bills. The issue spurred a near fracas outside Scott's office in 2016. This year, however, the proposal received relatively little public pushback and got the blessing of Florida Family Fairness and the Florida Bar's Family Law section, which fiercely clashed over the issue in the past. Along with eliminating permanent alimony, the measure will set up a process for ex-spouses who make alimony payments to seek modifications to alimony agreements when they want to retire. It will also allow judges to reduce or terminate alimony, support, or maintenance payments after considering a number of factors, such as the age and the health of the person who's making the payments, the customary retirement age of that person's occupation, the economic impact a reduction in alimony would have on the recipient of the payments, and the motivation for retirement and likelihood of returning to work for the person making the payments. What's up? Supporters said it will codify into law a court decision in a 1992 divorce case that judges use as a guidepost when making decisions about retirement. But as with previous versions, opponents remained concerned that the bill would apply to existing permanent alimony agreements, which many ex-spouses accept in exchange for giving up other assets as part of divorce settlements. Right? DeSantis, has just impoverished all the older women of Florida, and I know at least 3,000 women across the state of Florida are switching to Democrat, and we will campaign against him all the way forever. Camille Five-ish, I don't know how she pronounces that, a Milton Republican who receives permanent alimony, said in a phone interview. Look at this. So conservative white women are about to flip to the Democrats over permanent alimony. That's deep. That is deep. In vetoing the 2022 version, DeSantis pointed to concerns about the bill allowing ex-spouses to have existing alimony agreements amended. In the June 24, 2022 veto letter, he wrote that if the bill were to become law and be given retroactive effect as the legislature intends, it would unconstitutionally impair vested rights under certain pre-existing marital settlement agreements. I don't give a damn. That doesn't do anything for men who, like you said, can't retire behind these kinds of statutes, right? But Senator Bill sponsor Joe Gruters, Republican of Sarasota, tried to assure lawmakers that the 2023 version would not unconstitutionally affect existing alimony settlements. This year's proposal went to what is currently case law, Gruters told a Senate committee in April, pointing to the court ruling. So what you can do right now under case law, we now codify all those laws and make and make that the rule of law. So we basically just solidify that. So from a retroactivity standpoint, no, because if anything could be modifiable before, it's still modifiable. If it's a non-modifiable agreement, you still can't modify that agreement. All right. The bill, which will take effect Saturday, also will set a 5-year limit on what is known as rehabilitative alimony. A 5-year limit on rehabilitative alimony. Okay, that's what's up. Let me see. Go through some of these real quick. Like brothers are going in. Right now, this is obviously something that we're pushing for nationally, and I'll show you that in a minute. Let me see. Excuse me. Under the plan, people married for less than 3 years will not be eligible for alimony payments, and those who have been married for 20 years or longer will be eligible to receive payments for up to 75% of the term of the marriage. Oh, snap. The new law will also allow alimony payers to seek modifications if a supportive relationship exists or has existed involving their ex-spouses in the previous year. Critics argue the provision is vague and could apply to temporary roommates who helped alimony recipients cover living expenses for short periods of time. Five-ish, 63-year-old with serious medical conditions said she can't afford another legal fight over alimony. My fears are that they can take you back to court and don't have the money for an attorney. I literally live off a little bit I get for alimony. I work part-time because I have all kinds of ailments, and now I'm going to be left without anything, absolutely anything, she said. Health insurance, Five-ish added, will probably be the first thing to go if her payments are reduced or eliminated. This is a death sentence for me. Now, this is interesting. The way they frame this article is around her vulnerability. But what they don't acknowledge, I should say they acknowledged it briefly at the beginning, but they don't acknowledge it here, is the status of her ex. See, what happens if he's just as impacted by health issues as she is? What happens if the only reason he's working full-time long after retirement is because he's trying to maintain these alimony payments? So they're only casting, vulnerability on one end. I mean, I'll give this article credit for at least acknowledging that you have men that are stuck, making these payments long past the date they wanted to retire. But more than wanting to retire, it could be a health issue. It could be an age issue. It could be such that they're long after retirement, but at the end of the day, do not want to deal with the legal ramifications of not being able to follow through on this. Now, y'all know we have developed the black male political agenda. At this point, it is called the 17 point. It wasn't always called that. We worked our way up to 17 points. And as far as I'm concerned, we can go as many as we need to based on what you guys have to say, what ideas you have. You can put them in the comment section. You can email them to me at hasan.johnson@gmail.com. And we'll add that to the agenda if it holds water. You can also send accompanying articles or links so that we can know what the issue is and we can back it up, verify it. But as you can see, it was last updated today, July 3rd, 2023. And that is because if you go to, this is the streamlined list of the 17 points. You can see them all there. Click on any one of them to read more. I will put the link. It is already in the description box. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat as well. But if you click on, we're going to go to family court reform, and it's actually 17 points. I need to change that. But I'm going to click on education because it's the last point, right, in family court reform. So here it is. Technically, it is 1Q, right, in permanent alimony. And this is one of the things we're pushing for because there are black men that are dealing with permanent alimony, even though they themselves are not able to retire. They're not in a situation sometimes, and they're not even able to have their cases amended or revisited, right, because of court practices. So we want to actually get an opportunity for many of these brothers to be reconsidered. And I think I'll go ahead and add some of the language around the DeSantis bill as far as the 3 years, the 3-year marriage not being eligible for alimony, longer than 5 years, and then the 20 years, the 75% rate. We'll look at all of that and probably add that unless you guys have a better idea. And I'm looking most particularly for brothers who've had some experience with this. So if you have some particular insights to share about what you would advocate for, please go ahead and send them in, right? Not all of these are situations that I've experienced. So I tend to rely on brothers who've gone through this to add some insight based on their experiences so we can better tailor these things to Black males, right? So that said, that's what we're looking at. So it has been added. There will still be some edits made to it, and there can be more if you send more, but it is currently 1Q, right? End permanent alimony. And again, if you go to the streamlined list for the 17-point Black male political agenda, you'll find it as the last point for family court reform. So you can go through that and you can see there's actually 17 subpoints now for that one, which makes it the the most in-depth of all of the 17 points added here. Right? You got 12 points for criminal law. And that should tell you something, right? If you look at criminal law reform and it's up to 12, but family court reform is up to 17, that should tell you what Black men are grappling with most. It's not just, incarceration. It's not just the war on drugs. It's not just unemployment and homelessness. It seems to me, based on the feedback from Black men, that the most significant thing impacting Black men is actually family court issues. And this is why I talk about family court. This is why I talk about the impact of policy on the Black family and the weaponization of the family against Black men. And the weaponization of it over generations. The way this changes behavior, changes the way women see families and what they can get out of it, the way that women see men, the way families see men, the way kids are trained to see fathers. All of these things, in my assessment, are shaped by policy over generations. So if you have men who are avoiding marriage, who are avoiding coupling, who are avoiding even falling into the trap of, or what can be a trap, what is it called? Oh man, I'm blanking on it. It's not official marriage, but when you've been together so long, they consider you marriage. What's the term? Oh, I'm blanking on it at the moment. Damn it. I hate that. Common law. Thank you, Crown Prince. Appreciate that. Yeah, common law. So and I really do hope you're researching common law practices in your state, wherever you are. But you can trip into common law and find yourself in a situation that you weren't prepared for. But this goes to show you what men are grappling with most. Even more than education, the question of affirmative action for men, and that's something we need to revisit on the Black male political agenda in light of recent news. In terms of homelessness, unemployment, criminal law, intimate partner violence, all of these areas are incredibly important for the lives of Black men and boys. But the interesting thing I find is that family court reform seems to be what impacts Black men to a greater degree than any of the others. This means that you don't have to have committed a crime for this to impact you. You know what I mean? You don't have to have been dropped out of school. You don't have to be homeless on the streets. You don't have to do none of these things need to necessarily impact you. You didn't have to do anything beyond get in a relationship, maybe have kids, maybe get married. So this is a bit more impactful, a bit more widespread family court reform. So go through, look at it, read through it. If you haven't already, check it out. This last piece I'm just going to share with you because it was a surprise. I'm not advocating for it. I don't know this group, but I ran across this Facebook group called Women Support Alimony Reform. Women Against Permanent Alimony United. I thought that was deep. So if that's something you want to check out, the description, or the link, I should say, is in the description box for this. So Women Against Permanent Alimony United. They describe themselves as we're women and men seeking fairness and predictability in alimony laws. We want to replace permanent, I believe that means to say alimony. And it looks like they give you some phone numbers, some lawyers, groups, paid on the job training for 55 plus who are unemployed and living on limited income. They can get into a training program and work. Right. This looks like these people might be pretty serious. But again, I'm not advocating for it. I don't know much about it. I just ran across it before doing this video and thought I'd share it. But sometimes you'd be surprised the kind of groups out here that are making, that are supporting policy that may be in line with your interests. So that said, Shout out to BGS. What's good with you, man? Officer Faulkner, what's up? Got Dardar in the house. Kadash, what's up? We got Chi, we got Creative Force. A lot of brothers up in here. So just something to consider. And I want to hear your opinions. I want to get your thoughts on permanent alimony. Have you seen it? Have you experienced it? Is it something you've witnessed in your own families? This, of course, alongside child support can be debilitating to men. But of course, nobody cares because men are, the ground beneath your feet as far as the society is concerned. So it's an opportunity for us to actually impose men's humanity and have men's cases reconsidered. Now, alimony, again, has not been as significant in the last few decades as it was at different points. Yet, still, it depends on who you're talking to, because somebody that does have to deal with this might be critically debilitated behind having to keep up with this. Shout out to Salty Balls. He says, Dying Deacon have been playing fanfare to the likes of Uncle Luke and Richard of Ross in celebration of the state of oranges and flowers. Appreciate the super chat. Crazy, man. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to drop a quick word because I thought this was interesting. Again, people, when we talk about what power we have in this space and what we can do, I think people think of it on too small a scale. We look at an individual content creator and say, you'll never be able to do enough to change things. Why should we bother? It's not about the individual content creator. It's about you. It's about your willingness to work as a group and support a multitude of content creators that support the policies you're interested in. And then pushing those policies on your local politicians, anyone you can send it to that you think will be able to pick up and run with it and press to have your interests and values push in society. That's how this works. So this isn't about, because again, I've never said anything about permanent alimony. It's never crossed my mind, and the brothers of the Onyx Report have never submitted it to the black male political agenda. And yet we're starting to see some momentum behind the kinds of ideas, some of which we've articulated, some of which we may not have, that are starting to get traction, right? So mandatory DNA testing at birth, we're starting to see that. We're starting to see these kind of ideas gain some traction. The politicians are looking for new ways to acquire new votes. And that can be, I'm not saying it's the answer, it can be an answer to a particular aspect of what we're looking for. So if there are politicians willing to listen, then maybe they can get our attention too. And whether or not we'll actually use our votes to support them depends on how well and how much they're going to advocate for the things we value. But in order for us to have those kind of things happen, we first have to be able to articulate what it is we value, what it is we want. What kind of policies do you need in place? Because at the end of the day, what a lot of this really is about for us as black men in particular, and the black male political agenda, is about, how would I put it? It's about downplaying and deinstitutionalizing, at least legally, the gynarchy, and developing policies that allow for men to be able to operate outside of a gynocratic order and establish themselves however they may choose in their own individual families and beyond, but not having the legal, kind of supporting the state sanctioned aspects of gynocratic practice impose its will on your life. That's one of the things we're pushing for. And by doing this, we're hoping that we can actually begin to, create somewhat of a reality where you can operate as a human being and not be limited to being merely a subject of the state. So Dardar, shout out to you. Appreciate that support. Shadow Dog Law says, I saw somewhere Shaq is still paying alimony to his ex-wife who has remarried. Is that legal or something Shaq may be volunteering to do? I don't know. I didn't read into that. I did read she got married. I did wonder what it meant for alimony, but I didn't know what the outcome was. It may have been a stipulation or maybe something he agreed to. I'm not sure. Shout out to Exodia, the Forbidden One. I hope I pronounced that right. Appreciate that super chat. Leon says, military brat right here. I know of 2 cousins and a few OGs retired from the military, and their ex-wives take half forever unless they get remarried. And what kind of incentive is there for them to remarry? You know what I mean? What kind of incentive? I mean, I would venture to say Shaq's wife wouldn't have remarried unless there was something to protect whatever she was getting. I would bet money that there was something she did, or may have been laid out in whatever prenup, if you had one signed at all. But I bet it's legal on her end that she could do so and not have to worry about losing her money. And if it came down to keeping what she was getting from Shaq versus marriage, most women, I would argue, don't remarry. There's no incentive for them to. And this is what's frustrating so many of these older women, especially those who've been divorced for decades, but are still drawing alimony. You know what I'm saying? So appreciate that support, Leon. Salute Spain, man. I see you in there. You know, but this is what we got to push for. And these are the kind of conversations we need to have more of. Right? We need to have more conversations where we're talking about the various experiences we had and getting them on the books. Because it may not be something, I as an individual am dealing with. It may not be something you're dealing with. But if it is something that Black men deal with at one point or another, then it'd be good for us to develop an outlook as to how we think the policy should look and go from there. Okay. And if there's a way we can better use the agenda, I'm open to that. I don't presume to have all the answers. I just know that Black men as a collective need to articulate their concerns. That's the first point for any action we're going to take beyond this, is to at least have that. And this is why I've asked you, and I'm continuing to ask you, to continue to send me your ideas, your policy proposals, the things you think would improve the quality of life for Black boys and men. That's really all the Black male political agenda needs. Right? It needs to be about improving the quality of life for Black boys and men. That's it. So I appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback. I look forward to reading more in the chat. But send me your ideas. You can email them. You can put them right here in the comment section. But let's continue to develop them. And if you run across any articles like this Florida issue that you think speaks to Black men's lives, send them forward. We can talk about those as well. Right? So appreciate that. Y'all have a good night. And I will see you guys shortly. Peace.